With this, we may start with the industry presentations. I invite Mr. K.P. Saha, Managing Director, Sunrisa Technologies Private Limited, to please address the audience and give an industry presentation to us. Thank you. A round of applause for our speakers, please.
Good evening, panelists on the dais and friends. Throughout the day, we have seen a lot of thought process that have gone on the cloud, mostly on the infrastructure part. So, I would like to present on the service delivery to the masses, which is the need of the hour today. So, I have made a presentation like embracing cloud for service delivery to the masses. A brief about Sunrisa. We are a new generation technology provider providing end-to-end solution in financial inclusion and other service delivery channel. Sunrisa has positioned itself as a pioneer in financial inclusion with adaptation of the latest technology. We are providing first and last mile ICT solution and services to over 15,000 villages across India through business correspondent model. I think most of you know the financial inclusion, the business correspondent model. Sunrisa is one of the early implementer of Aadhaar enabled payment system for direct benefit transfer. Well, the previous session, Mr. Methu have already discussed on the Aadhaar and the direct benefit transfer. We are one of the first implementer of Aadhaar enabled payment system in India. Our cloud-based service delivery platform are low cost, low or no investment and help our customers shift from capital expenses to operating expenses. So as we have been discussing for the day, the cloud is more on the OPEX model rather than the CAPEX model. So without wasting much time, I will briefly discuss some of the platform that we have designed over the years. First one is on the financial inclusion. I mean, we know that Government of India wants that all customer need bank account and all transaction should be through the account. And to some extent, we have been giving the basic services of banking like deposit and withdrawal. Believe me, we are working in the field. The customers are not convinced with just withdrawal and deposit. They need all type of services. So we need a platform which can be scalable because they want the ATM services, the merchant POS, so that they can go for shopping when they are into the city. They see the other people are swiping their card for marketing, right, or purchase anything. So they want those type of services. And there are multiple vendors who is giving those services in the different, even in a bank. So there has to be a single platform which can cater all the services. I mean, right from the ATM, merchant POS, micro ATM, mobile banking, business correspondent, government beneficiaries, whether it's a APS or IMPS. I mean, you need a single platform which cater all the need of a financial inclusion. And we are providing this type of solution for the banks. And it's purely on cloud, which we are implementing with the central authentication server, or it could be connected to Aadhaar for authentication. The next product that we have designed is on the government benefit gateway. So similar type of product, I mean, already the government is also designing. Since we are into the payment system, it is our main core area, and we have a government benefit gateway where all the department, like every department has some beneficiaries, right, where they are giving the pension or subsidies. Or so now in some cases it is through transfer through account, or in some cases it is through check. So So it could be a single platform through which immediately you don't need to do NEFT, which will be created after 3 hours or after 24 hours. Now you have a technology, immediately the amount could be created on the customer account through with the help of IMPS, and you can have all the department integrated in a single platform with all the beneficiaries, where in a single click, or you can have a scheduler if it is a monthly basis where the amount is credited to the beneficiary's account. And there could be multiple banks that is involved in the whole process. So, and it's also a cloud enable, and it could be rolled out in no time. As discussed by Mr. Matthew of UIDAI, so on the eKYC, we have a whole eKYC service delivery system ready. So whether it's a bank or government department, the eKYC infrastructure of Aadhaar could be utilized, and the information that is collected from after authentication of the beneficiaries could be used by their existing system or the legacy system, where they can integrate the data, and manual entry could be minimized to 0, right? And the client end could be a PC, mobile, tab, anything in this system. This is also purely on cloud. I mean, it could be rolled out anytime, at any point of time. So other e-governance solution that we have with us is on the MNREGA field automation. I mean, we have been discussing a lot of MNREGA, right? So the major reason for not implementing to the maximum is we don't have a real tracker how the work is done at the field. So with the help of IT, we can really track whether the money that we are giving, whether he have really worked for that project or that job or not. So that system is already there. At the back end, NIC now have the API and web services which could be integrated with the NIC software, which is used by all the states. So that whole system give you, I mean, you don't need even a computer at the field, at the panchayat level. So you need somewhere where they can take the handheld device and upload the data. The rest everything, right, from the payroll or the scroll that is prepared automatically get generated in the NIC server, right? So that is another area where the government department can explore on the field automation of MNREGA, which is the need of the hour, where 1,000 crores, lakhs of crores are invested, and actually the output is very negligible. The other solution that we have built, which is also in the cloud, is the PDS, Public Distribution System, where in the public distribution system we have the public commissionerate, then there is a social audit department is there who do the social, then is the community. Community also should know like whether the rice or the sugar is available to my nearest PDS center or not. So this thing is only possible when we use the cloud, we take the advantage of the cloud and we leverage this platform for the masses. So here the Fair Shop will have a simple mobile based device, and it could be authenticated through UIDAI or central authentication or some process that identity of the beneficiary could be established, and then you can have the server which could be a part of the NIC or the state owned or the hosted solution which we are having. So that is another area, these are the core area where today we need a solution which could be immediately rolled out, and we are proud that we are having that solution with us. So these are the major products. Because I know that time is less, so I have kept my presentation very precise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving us the insights of cloud computing. Now I invite Mr. Varun Sood, CIO and Head Strategic Initiatives of Fortis Healthcare Limited, to please address the audience.
Good evening. It's a pleasure being here. I think it is late. It is time for dinner, and we've still got 1, 2, 3, 4 people to go through. And I think the dinner and drinks is waiting. So I will also try and keep it short. So I don't have a presentation, but I just wanted to give you a perspective on cloud in healthcare and how we are leveraging it. So the problem statement for healthcare in India, if you look at it, is that 70% of all beds facilities available are in the urban or tier 1 to tier 3 cities, while 70% of patients or people who need it are actually in the rural scenario. There is a challenge on medical talent, on quantity and quality of medical talent, and also where you can take the medical talent. People, doctors prefer being in the urban setting, in the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 environment, and a problem to go into the rural thing. There is an affordability question. Healthcare, though in India is one of the cheapest in the world, it is still expensive from an Indian context. There is an access and reach challenge. People who need access or do not get it because the healthcare service doesn't reach them. Now, what is the cloud that it does and what have we done with it? So as an organization, we looked at last year to actually solve a couple of business problems, and the outcome of which was to say we decided we would move from infrastructure on the physical world or co-located world into the public cloud. Not private, but the public cloud. What it has helped us do is, it has actually given us benefits on the ability to scale on demand at an optimum price point. So costs have come down while our flexibility has scaled. It has given us actually performance that is required from an end user standpoint, not IT, and I would come to this point a little later. And it is secure as security is defined, with privacy and security defined, because the regulation side is also important. The side effect of this is that we have actually ended up, in IT traditionally we buy servers, we think boxes, we set up data centers like the, Secretary IT and the additional secretary also spoke of. We think of the traditional world and we buy hardware, we buy infrastructure, we set it up. What this has helped us do is, it has helped us actually streamline our own internal processes. We don't buy anymore. We actually procure on demand. When we need capacity, we scale up, and we can scale down in a minute. If my application on a Saturday, for example, is the peak load time in our hospitals. Earlier, if you wanted to cater to peak load time, I would have had to buy twice the number of servers and hardware and maintain it. Now we don't do it anymore. Only on Saturday mornings, if we have flexibility to scale up the application or infrastructure, and Saturday evening scale it down. It's on demand when you want it. You can also do it automatically. So your serviceability from a performance from an end user standpoint, consumer standpoint is maintained. It has saved us money, which is actually helping us give it back to business to either reduce cost of services we provide or actually invest in more services that can be given to consumers. From a regulatory standpoint, and I sat through about 1.5 sessions before this, security, privacy, regulations are a reality of our life. I think regulations as they stand right now, we have to comply with laws and regulations that abide. But security and privacy are more a state of mind than they are reality. There is no difference between what you do in a data or a server which is in your premise vis-a-vis what you do in a server which is put in a central data center, vis-a-vis what you will do on a server or a virtual machine which is lying somewhere where you don't know. The only difference that comes in there is, where is the server lying? Is it in your country or is it outside? And that's a regulatory question which comes into play. Apart from that, you can put in the same infrastructure for security, same controls for privacy. Exactly the same thing that you do on a physical server in your control, you can do on a virtual server lying somewhere else. It is more a question of how do you look at it and what perceptions you get. The challenge here is actually from people like me who are IT folks who head IT, and IT professionals want the physical box, think of it that way, and we think of everything in that term. I quite liked what the additional secretary had said in his keynote. I think what we need to focus on is the view from an end user standpoint. Because as soon as you take a view from the end user standpoint on what they require from IT or from the system, the decisions and the perspectives change. In fact, what we went out in Fortis to do is, once we did this cloud journey, we realized that what is critical here is actually also solving our connectivity issue, solving our perception issues or performance issues from the end user standpoint. We actually engage with all our service partners on the network side, on the facility management side, help desk, etc., etc. And we redid all our engagements on a service outcome basis. So we said we are not, SLAs don't matter. SLAs is irrelevant, that's more an IT standpoint. What matters is an end user, for example, able to consume an application service when he or she wants to do it, at the performance level that he or she wants. And from an end user, if you were to simply look, you go to the internet, what matters to us is the site opening, and is it opening as per the speed that we want, that we believe. If it is 100 millisecond or 1 second is fine, but if it's 5 seconds, you feel the difference. So what do you define as performance from an end user is what matters. What doesn't matter is what jitters are there in the network, what is the RTO, what is happening at the network level. What matters is am I able to consume the service at the performance level that is needed for me as an end consumer, not as IT. So when we flipped over our view from thinking from IT standpoint to thinking from what end user wants, in our case it was doctors, nurses, our operating people, our management folks, etc., and our customers in some cases, our decisions on IT completely changed. And that was one of the key things where the public cloud actually made a lot of sense. Because like to like, what we saw was from a performance, from a support, and from a availability standpoint, like to like there was no difference. It added a lot of benefit on flexibility and on costs. Economics became much better. Apart from that, technically it doesn't matter if we have a mainframe running or a 486 box or a x86 machine running in the backend. Till my performance is being met, it should not matter from an end user standpoint, and we consciously took that call. We have realized a lot of benefits that come into it. It has enabled us to actually, like I said, so one thing is we don't plan anymore. We don't need to. So that management overhead within the function of capacity planning, SLA management, AMC management, etc., has all disappeared. It is now someone else's problem. So we are now, the time saved there, my team and me are spending more on focusing on solving business problems than on running IT. It has added a lot of cost benefits to us, which we are plowing back into doing newer things for our customers and offering them services which previously were not available or possible. It has significantly reduced our ability to offer new services. So, if you were to look at it, the cloud, end of the day, is actually just a data center somewhere, and you offer services of it. Now, you can do it from an infrastructure level, or you can do it at the upper end from a services or software as a service standpoint. So, we are moving a lot to the software as a service model, where our ability to actually scale a service, open 5 more hospitals and bring them online instantly, or not instantly, but within a very short period of time has expanded. When we roll out a service, we have a central control. The Secretary IT also spoke. We also have 30 applications, in same application in 30 versions running across. How do you bring it up together into one place and bring control and consistency of customer experience? Because that is what it translates into by the end of it. And for us, a customer was the patient or an attendant or even the internal employee who's working on the application. Significant benefits have come. I think what has also happened is that with the benefits that have been delivered from this, we have our business, our management has actually said we need to do much more to scale up. So the confidence from the function per se has gone up. It has helped us become more on business people than become IT people. And I think that is a big change which is driving industry per se now, where the IT function is being looking to solve real business problems. But that only happens when you actually solve, contribute and think of it as a business from that standpoint. The last one, I want to share an example, and I think regulation is something which is very important. So in the tsunami that hit Japan in a few years ago, 4-5 years ago, so Japan had a very interesting regulatory issue on health records. Japan has, like we have districts and states, they have prefectures in the country. What Japan had was, as per law, the medical records of an individual could only be stored in the prefecture that the patient was resident in. It could not be taken outside. When the tsunami hit, a lot of these prefectures were impacted, especially on the coastal side, and a lot of medical records were wiped out. They got lost. The reason for that was that, one, they could only do backups in the prefectures. The prefectures were small, they weren't very large. There was a lot of paper-based medical records or even electronic that was there. Third, the biggest impact for them was they have a very high aging population, because of which the continuity of care for the patient got impacted. So it was a wake-up call for the government of Japan, but what they did was they looked at it in a different way. They didn't think of, they were first thinking security, privacy. They changed that perspective to risk and risk mitigation. When you look at risk, they changed the laws and regulations and said now they are allowed that data to be actually stored somewhere else. I think that is a thinking that needs to be incorporated into, imbibed into how we also think as a country, because health or any other data which is stored is confidential, it's private, it's critical, it's a national resource for that matter. but it needs to be in the context of the risk it poses to actually put the regulation in place. I think, I just wanted to share a few perspectives of where we were coming from as a private organization and how we've benefited from using the cloud. And I would stop here now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sood, for giving us a perspective of technology in healthcare. Now I will invite a person who is patiently listening to us from an hour, but he is a visionary and has led a project like Passport project and made it the easiest project, like easiest service delivery, one of the easiest service deliveries in the country. So we have this visionary with us. I invite Shri Muktesh Pardeshi ji, Joint Secretary and Chief Passport Officer, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, to address the audience. So please, a round of applause for Muktesh.
Thank you. I'll try to be as brief as possible. As Additional Secretary from the Cabinet Secretary mentioned a short while ago, we have to see whether e-governance project is benefiting people, the quantum of the benefit which accrue to citizens. From that yardstick, I would say passport service is one area where ICT has been successfully applied, deployed and implemented. This is one area where increased ICT enablement has helped us in delivering passport services to citizens in a better manner. In 2013, the Government of India in India and abroad issued some 8.5 million passports. 8.5 million passports is a huge number. Now we are ranked third in the world after China and the United States in terms of issuance of passports. There's only three countries, China, US and India, account for sizable percentage of passports issued anywhere. But these two countries, China and the United States, in terms of economic level, in terms of infrastructure, they were far ahead of us. And for the Government of India, it was a big challenge how to leverage ICT in betterment of public service delivery. Sometime in 2007, the Union Cabinet gave approval to what is called Passport Seva project under the National E-Governance Plan. This is one of the mission mode projects under the National E-Governance Plan. But the real implementation of the project happened between 2010 to 2012. I have been associated with this project as mission leader since 2010. So I have seen those days where this project was not there, and now where this has been cited as one of the area where ICT has been used successfully. How it has happened, briefly I will give an overview. Now, before you apply, there is a portal, and this is a single portal which is available to citizen of India anywhere. Whether you apply in Panama or apply in Trichy or Ladakh, the same application is available. So this application is universal, whether you are 1 day old or you are in some hospital being treated and might have crossed 100 plus. Last year, the youngest applicant was 2 days old and the oldest was 114. Well, we could not verify the age because, somebody who is 114, there was no proper birth record those days. So we have gone by the affidavit and the police verification certified after talking to the villagers that he was 140. So this application is universal, from somebody who is just 1 day old, who is just born, to somebody who has crossed 100 years. It's global. Whether you apply in Chile, in South America, to somewhere in Ladakh, in interior area, in Jammu and Kashmir, the same application is available. We have, the application is called PRIDE, Passport Related Information Data Exchange, is available to not only passport issuing authorities, but all other stakeholders like immigration. So today, if you have been issued passport today, I'd say for example 6 o'clock, and you go to airport, they have real-time information about the passport. There is no lag. So they will match your passport against the data available in the PRIDE. Similarly, somebody who had been issued a passport abroad and he comes to Delhi airport, the immigration people have the access to real-time information. We have a call center operating on 24/7 basis in 17 languages, where people can find information about passport services, where to apply, how much it costs, how many days it takes, what are the documents required. The whole bouquet of information is available through this platform. We also have a facility of online application as well as e-payment facilities which were unveiled last year. So citizens are now required to pay online through credit card, debit card, internet banking. In case they do not have access to any of the above, these services, they can go to the nearest SBI and use bank challan. When I joined as the country chief passport officer in 2010, there were many cases, and every day I used to struggle with what is called missing files. If some grievance came to me, and if I checked with the passport officer, invariably the answer would be, "Sir, we can't trace the file." Now, the first thing we do is we digitize the file. In last 2 years, I had not a single case of missing file. So what the government is now talking about, how digitization of government records can help in verification and authentication of public record. So there is no missing file. Missing file is history so far as passport services is concerned. Enrollment process had been modernized. Earlier it was manual. There was no data capture. The government was not able to see the citizen. This we have added to improve the security level in the issuance system, and that's the global expectation, that if the Indians are traveling and we are traveling a lot, our passport has to be credible document. We do not want to give a document to our citizen so that when he arrives in a foreign land, there is a question about the credibility of the document he is carrying. So the world has to be convinced that the passport which is being given to our citizens is a top class. It has gone through the rigor of verification. So what we do, citizens' presence is now mandatory. You have many times cases where photo substitution were happening earlier. It's all history. Your photograph will be taken by our staff. We capture 10 fingerprints. At the PSK Passport Seva Kendra, which have been set up in PPP mode with the Tata Consultancy Services, and we have 77 of them. So our 37 passport offices are being supported by 77 Passport Seva Kendra in PPP mode, the top class with all the amenities there. There it's the first in, first out principle, which is the basic norm of transparency and accountability. There is no preference to anybody. You report and the system gives you token and then you follow the procedures. We have integrated other government departments like police department. The moment you visit the Passport Seva Kendra and you are out, your police verification form has been triggered and has reached the police department through electronic means. So the time taken in police verification and in the dispatch and receipt of verification has been cut down. This has also improved better monitoring with the police department. Out of 725 districts, some 450 districts are already integrated, and our target is that most of the districts, police districts this year will be integrated online. Now, once application is made, what are the other facilities, ICT enabled facilities available to the citizens? They are, the citizen can track application through call center, through our portal, through mobile app. We have M-Passport Seva, which can be downloaded, and it's available in different platforms. And the citizen is not required to call anybody. You know, the whole idea of dependence on the government servant is taken away. Sitting at home, he can track his application. There are SMS alerts, and so with mobile app and SMS alert and the internet, they can track their application by themselves. In case they do not have access to these facilities, of course they can call our national call center. In terms of business analytics which is available to the government, we have access to dashboard and daily reporting. So with the click of button, at the headquarters, we can monitor how many citizens are visiting at what place, how many government staff, because their work is being monitored through digital signature. At a particular point of time, I can tell you how many staff are actually working, whether somebody has reported for duty or not, whether somebody is late or not coming. All this business analytics is now available to within passport offices as well as headquarters. I think I'll stop here because I've given you a sense of what we have done in passport services. This year our target is 1 crore passport a year, this and without any addition of staff. Though the sanction cadre has enhanced, but the working level has remained as it was 5 years. So through the increased deployment of ICT, we have been able to scale up our services. We have been able to improve services, bring in a lot of security, a lot of accountability and transparency, which is now a call of the new government, how to improve public service, how to maximize governance with minimum government, and in this context, I think the Passport Seva project stands out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for briefing us on the very successful project, Passport Seva project. Now I invite the person who has already won the award for his work in e-governance space. It's our pleasure to have Mr. Chandrakant Dalvi, Settlement Commissioner and Director of Land Records Pune, here in the event. I request sir to please address the audience. A round of applause for Mr.
Speakers on the dais, ladies and gentlemen, it is already too late to speak before you because you are here from 2 o'clock till today up to 9 o'clock, and dinner is I think also ready, so everybody is in a hurry. I will not make a presentation, but give a brief about what we are doing in National Land Record Modernization Program. As the Secretary IT, R.S. Sharma ji, mentioned about 34 Mission Mode projects being implemented in the country. National Land Record Modernization Program is one of the programs of Mission Mode projects, and we are implementing this project in Maharashtra state. You know, the present land records have the presumptive value. Whatever record of rights you have, maybe in different names in different states, but all of these land records are having the presumptive value unless they are proved in the court. If they are challenged, they are not true. And the intention of the project NLRMP is to provide conclusive land titling in the country. In Maharashtra, we are implementing this project from 2008 onwards. There are about 6 components in National Land Record Modernization. I will give a very brief overview of these 6 components, how we are implementing in the Maharashtra. One of the important aspect is going online mutations. Whenever there are transfers of properties, transfer of rights to the other persons, the mutations are effected. And presently the system is manual, and in this NLRMP project, the system is to be made online so that the people will not have to come to the revenue offices, land record offices for making the mutations. So in Maharashtra, we are implementing this project in the name of e-mutations. We have 44,000 revenue villages, 12,500 patwaris, talatis, 2,500 circle officers, 358 talukas and 35 districts. We have developed a software called e-mutation with the help of NIC Pune, and this project is in the phase of implementation. Pilots are already successfully implemented. The project is rolled out 6 months before. All the talatis in Maharashtra are provided with the laptops. They are provided with the data cards, with the digital signatures, and connectivity to the state data center with the VPN over broadband. The project is already in the phase of implementation. Within a month, one taluka from every district will go for the online mutations, and by the end of this year, all the state will be doing the mutations online. As soon as document is registered with the registered department, as soon as the cell deed is registered, the process of mutation will start from the registration itself. And after 15 days, the time limit, legal time which is required to raise an objection if anybody wants to, the mutations are certified after 15 days. As soon as mutations are certified, the record of rights will be corrected, and people will get the SMS that your application, your mutation has been certified, and you can go to the website and you will be able to download the corrected record of rights. This is one of the projects that is called e-mutation. Another project is e-Chavdi. In every village, there is a land records maintained by the village talati or village patwari. The record is very huge. It is maintained in different forms. It is prescribed by the land revenue codes of every state. Every state has a same types of land records. And in Maharashtra, as per the Maharashtra Land Revenue Code 1966, there are 21 forms in which the record of village is maintained. Maharashtra government has decided to digitize all these records at the village level. All the functioning of the talatis or patwaris will be made online, because e-mutation project and e-Chavdi project are the projects which will be implemented each and every village in the Maharashtra. So all the infrastructure is already provided from the e-mutation project, and the same infrastructure will be used for implementation of e-Chavdi. Chavdi in Maharashtra is an office of the talati or the patwari, which is located in the village, in the revenue village. So the office of the talati is called Chavdi, and therefore we have named the project as an e-Chavdi. The software is also developed by NIC. The training is also completed, infrastructure is in place, and the project is in phase of implementation by entering the data by the Talatis at the every village, every taluka level. So the e-mutation and e-Chavdi projects are the basic projects which will make the land records in Maharashtra online. Another component of the land record modernization is there are 100-year-old records in every state, and the directive of the Government of India is to digitize, computerize all the 100-year-old records and make them available to the public as soon as on demand immediately. If today somebody goes to the Tahsildar office or the Talati office, after given application, it requires about 10-15 days to search the record, make a copy and provide to the public. If we digitize all the records, it can be made available within say 21 minutes, or which will earlier it is taking 21 days, it can be provided in 21 minutes also. It can be searched online and can be printed and given to the public. In Maharashtra, this program is already rolled out. The scanning of the all old records will be done by the private agencies, and the certification or quality check will be done by the department people. In Maharashtra, we have 26 crore documents to be scanned, and by going through all the procedure of RFP and selection of vendors, the carbon data management services has been given the 50% of the state. RICO India is another vendor, and the CMS is another vendor. So work orders are already given, and every taluka level, the work of scanning of all these old land records of 100 years will commence. The project will take about 18 months to complete. So after 1.5 years from today, all the land records in Maharashtra will be in the digitized form. Another important project is cadastral maps. When British made survey of the state and India, they started in 1802 from Madras provinces, and thereafter the country up to the Everest was measured by the Surveyor General of India, then Surveyor General of India, George Everest, and the peak in the Himalaya is named after the Surveyor General of India, Mr. George Everest. Mount Everest, nothing but the Surveyor General of India's name given to the peak. So the land records data, survey record of data, that is cadastral maps in India, in Maharashtra, are from 1830 onwards. So in Maharashtra, 1830 to 1870, this survey, first survey was done by the Britishers, and all those records, maps are called cadastral maps, and all these cadastral maps are required to be digitized to preserve for future. And in LRMP, it is one of the components that the digitization of cadastral maps. We have done a pilot project in one of the taluka in Pune district, and the project is under the RFP is being published within a few months to call for the vendors to do the job of a digitization. Digitization will be done by the private agencies, and again the certification or the validity or the quality check will be done by the departmental officials. So this is the third project, fourth project. First was e-mutation, another was e-Chavdi, another was e-record, the scanning of the textual record. Then e-maps, that is the digitization of spatial data, that is the cadastral maps. And one of the most important project which is to be implemented under NLRMP is the resurvey of the state. Britishers have surveyed the country. Thereafter, except West Bengal, none of the states are remeasured, resurveyed. And one of the important component of the NLRMP is the resurvey of the state again. And there are three options, technological options available for this resurvey. One is aerial photography and GPS. Another is ETS and GPS. And third one is using satellite imagery and GPS technology. We have done a pilot by using satellite imagery and ETS machines, and pilot is successful. The proposal is with the government of Maharashtra for approval of the cabinet, and as soon as it is approved, the project will be implemented. The Maharashtra will be resurveyed on the basis of the experience of the pilot project by using satellitary image and GPS technology. The land parcel maps which will be provided to the people after surveying, the people who are cultivating their land parcels, the satellite imagery on the basis, with the help of satellite imagery, the land parcel maps will be generated and given to the public. With the presently, when we give the measurement plans to the public, we give only the polygon. But in the resurvey, by using a satellite imagery, we will be able to give the satellite image of the parcel on the map itself. So this project is being launched within 6 months from today, and this is how we are going to implement the National Land Record Modernization Program under the name eMahaBhoomi in Maharashtra. So this is a presentation, brief presentation on the National Land Record Modernization Program. And because Mr. Pardeshi is here, and I would like to request him to, for one point, very good project being implemented. Since I was District Magistrate and Collector Pune, and presently posted in Pune, many people come to me for giving Tatkal certificate for the issue of a passport. And I have observed that the many people who come for the verification for Tatkal, they are coming because their passport is expired and they wanted to renew it. So a lot of good work is done, but why you go through all the process of issuance of a new passport when the people are already having their old passport having last 10-15 years. And whenever at the time of a renewal, again they have to pass through all the old process as if they are being issued a new passport. I have found, at least the people who came to me for the issue of a Tatkal passport, 50% of them wanted to have the renewal of the passport, but they are directed to go through all the process again as if they are applying afresh. So just I wanted to know, because you are here, and I thought I must pass this problem really faced by the people. If you can do something on this issue, people will be really benefited. So thank you very much for giving me opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Maybe sir will discuss this query of you with you. Now we have the last speaker of the day, but an important speaker. After that, we will be having dinner. So for the last speaker of the CloudGov event, I invite Shri Santulan Chaubeji, Director, E-Governance Society, Government of Delhi. Sir, please address the audience. A round of applause for our last speaker of the day.
So I am only person between your dinner and nobody else. When I came here, I thought that I will read entire this book, but I could not do it. Okay, because whatever I want to tell you, I am listening for last I think 2 or 3 hours. So my all talk, what I wanted to tell you, is already told. I heard Secretary IT, what he wanted, what he told, what Additional Secretary Cabinet was also of the same view. I am also the same view. So I will not take any time to finish my talk, except 3 things I will tell you. One, citizen is not bothered. You are using cloud or you are not using cloud. That's immaterial for the citizen. For us, as a technology implementer, yes, we want a good, robust technology. This is the topic of today's talk. And definitely Delhi is doing lots of things in that, and Delhi is the best place to have cloud. What don't be bother asking? So we should have cloud as soon as possible with good monsoon. And the monsoon is very important. Cloud will not work, I tell you. That rain should within cloud. You know what I am telling you. So you please, what I'm going to tell is the last that the basic issue, what I'm not touching now because everybody touched upon that, licensing is a very important issue. Proprietary software is a very important issue. And last issue what I want to tell you, it's adoption. Like Secretary told that we should not have what we are having more than what we need. This should not be there. So proper scaling should be there. And nothing else I want to tell you. Please enjoy your dinner. Thank you very much, patients here for last 3 or 4 hours. Thank you. Thank you. This book I will tell you later on. Okay.
Thank you very much to all the speakers. Now I request Shri Muktesh Pardesi ji to present the mementos to our eminent speakers on stage. We'll start with Shri Chandrakant Dalvi ji, Settlement Commissioner and Director of Land Records, Pune. A round of applause for our speakers. Shri Santulan Chaube ji, Director, E-Governance Society, Government of Delhi. Shri KP Saha, Managing Director, Sunreza Technologies Private Limited. And finally, the techie in healthcare industry, Shri Varun Suji, CIO and Head Strategic Initiatives, Fortis Healthcare Limited. I request a group photo of the speakers. And before that, I'm very sorry, I request Dalvi ji to please present a memento to Muktesh Pardesi ji. We are very thankful of him to join us, and we are thankful of all the eminent speakers today.